If you're feeling sluggish in matches or struggling to recover from training, it's likely that you're not eating enough carbohydrate. In this video, we're going to look at some of the consequences of not getting enough carbohydrates and some strategies you can use to make sure you're fueling up for future games and training. Forcing as players not eating enough carbohydrate around matches or training. So we'll start off with how much should you actually eat, and that's going to be dependent on initially your body weight. So a bigger player will need more carbohydrates and a smaller player would need less. Recommendations around 6 to 10 grams per kg of body weight. So for an 80 kg person, let's take myself an example there, I'd be looking for between 400 and 800 grams. That's a wild enough variety from 480 to 800. To give a little bit of context around that, a standard serving of porridge, so a bowl or a medium-sized bowl, it'd be about 60 grams of porridge. That's 40 grams of carbohydrate and 230 calories. A pre-cooked Aldi pancake, one of my own favourites in terms of carbon up variety, is around 21 grams of carbohydrate. So if you're looking on the lower end of what you should have for mash, 480, and there's 21 grams of carbohydrate in a pancake, you need to eat obviously an awful lot of pancakes or make it up from an awful lot of other different sources. Why then are carbohydrates important? So without going too sciencey on this, when you eat carbohydrate, it's broken down, forms glycogen, that's stored in your muscles. This is the primary fuel source used for all the high intensity actions you do in the game, running, jumping, sprinting, turning, tackling, whatever it might be. It's glycogen you're using for all that. You can store this up in advance, say 24 hours out. Your muscles can hold on to a lot of it. Flip side of that, your brain actually can't. Needs somewhat of a constant supply, albeit in small amounts. That's why it's worth dipping in with a little bit at half time, or even having something small in a particularly long training session so your concentration doesn't drop too much. You should start getting the carbohydrates or extra carbohydrates about 24 hours out from a game, because you just need more for it. You obviously have the 60 or 70 minutes or whatever with extra time in the match itself, plus the warm-up, maybe a jog cool down, the general energy you just tend to burn up through nerves or elevated heart rate coming up to a game. They're all going to use up extra carbohydrate, extra calories. So that's why a distance out, i.e. 24 hours out, you start getting in extra. For the majority of training sessions, 8 to 12 hours out will probably be enough. And aim then for around 2 carbohydrate-rich meals or snacks after the match or after training to help and replenish this. And what I mean by snacks or meals is, it might just be a case of you have a nice big moju or sugary chocolate milk straight afterwards and then go for a meal after that again. Or if you have a meal straight after training, you might have a light snack when you go home if it's like an evening training. Does the type of carbohydrate matter for this? And realistically it does. So getting enough is obviously going to be the most important thing. You want to get enough total carbohydrate that you can then go and use in the match or in the training. But we ideally want to aim for lower fibre as we get closer to exercise, because it's just so much easier on your stomach to manage. General day to day, or if you're listening to this and you don't play sport, you might just be a coach and you want a little bit of advice yourself. Higher fibre carbohydrates are generally better because they're more slowly released, they're better for regulating blood sugar levels, better for your digestion, all like that. But coming up to matches, you want lower in fibre because it's easier to digest, it's easier on your stomach, it's going to just be easier for going to the toilet and stuff as well. Plus, higher fibre also just takes up more space in your belly and will often contain less total carbohydrate, or at least more easily accessible total carbohydrate. We don't want to be eating loads of sugary foods all the time. It shouldn't be the main basis of your diet, but more sugar or higher in sugar foods can be really helpful coming up to exercise. They're quicker to digest, they're easier to eat and digest, but they're also just more appetizing to eat. It's easier to eat a lot of carbohydrates with it, or a lot of pancakes with a bit of maple syrup on it, than sit down and eat a big bowl of bran flakes containing the same amount of carbohydrate as the pancakes and maple syrup. We looked in at a few example foods and strategies, so foods that I tend to like or recommend to people, but not just the foods, strategies around them to help you incorporate them into the day-to-day eating. So one simple way is to just increase the portion of carbohydrates you have throughout the day. Whatever you normally eat, have extra of the carbohydrates that are on the plate. So if you're having a bowl of porridge for breakfast, have extra porridge. If you usually have 60 grams, have 80, 90, 100 grams of porridge. If you have 3 Weetabix for breakfast, have 4 or 5. If you're having rice for lunch and you usually have 80 grams, have 100 or 110. Same with, 2 slices of toast, have 3 slices of toast. If you're having pasta, have extra pasta, whatever you like that way. Some other ones then, because that can be a little bit harder to manage, particularly if you don't weigh and you're just eyeballing how much you have. Other ways then are to add a carb-rich snack alongside your main meal. So if you have overnight oats or porridge for breakfast, have a slice of toast alongside that. If you have some yogurt and fruit at 10 o'clock with a cup of coffee, have maybe a scone and some jam along with that. If you're having chicken and rice for lunch, have half a bread roll beside that. If you're having pasta bolognese for lunch or dinner, have a naan bread or a garlic bread along with that. It's just adding an extra snack, and 3 or 4 of those snacks added up across the day will be all the extra carbohydrate you need. I usually don't encourage liquid calories. It can be too easy to consume an awful lot without realising it, but this is where extra carbohydrate can be gotten in quite easily. Like some examples are like some orange juice a few hours beforehand is a lot of extra carbohydrate. Some Lucozade Sport. Be mindful if you're getting it from smoothies, because they can just have an awful lot of extra fibre that your stomach might not be used to coming in that amount. It can leave you feeling bloated or uncomfortable or just needing to go to the toilet a bit extra that you don't really need. Another simple one, a few players I found who just thought this was really easy, was buy a box of your favourite sugary breakfast cereal and just have 3 or 4 bowls of that across the day. Eat as you normally eat, and then a box of Crunching Nut, a box of Cocoa Pops, a box of something sugary that you'd have, and have an extra bowl with what you normally have for breakfast, an extra bowl straight after your lunch. Maybe a 3 o'clock snack, have a bowl of cereal then as well. And that, 3 or 4 bowls of that will give you the extra carbohydrate across the day. I remember hearing a story of a nutritionist who went in to give a talk in a professional soccer club in the UK. It wasn't like Premier League, but it was the Championship, say. And he just said, it's really important to eat extra carbohydrate. And he Google imaged pile of toast, and he put the Google image of pile of toast up there. And he asked one of the players a few months later how you find it. Oh, brilliant. Yeah, just that advice. Said around 11 slices of toast was brilliant. And the nutritionist said, 11 slices of toast? Well, yeah, you had an image up on the projector of toast. So I counted. There was 11 slices there. So now before every match, I have 11 slices of toast. And the nutritionist was like, I did not want him to eat 11 slices of toast. That's an awful lot. I need to be careful around the messaging here. But the player says he feels unbelievable. There's been no excess weight gain. He's loads of extra energy going into matches. So it worked. But it was a bit of a nuclear approach to it. And finally then, and we'll talk about this later on when we say about the trying to lose weight too quickly, but general issues around not having enough carbohydrates, or particularly extra carbohydrates in general, are it's just not enough energy to last the game. Like, the carbohydrates are your energy for it. If you don't have them in your body, you are unable to use them then when you go into or go out on the pitch to try and play a match or to train. It will generally lead to fatigue in the last 10 or 20 minutes of a game, because that's when you've run out. There'll also be a big drop in concentration at that stage, because there isn't a constant supply to your brain to think about what's happening. That is often where the biggest mistakes are often made, often due to lacks of concentration. If you're doing it consistently, you're not going to be able to recover enough from the trains you're doing. If you train 2 or 3 times a week, plus a match and gym sessions on top of that, and you don't have enough total carbohydrates around each of those training sessions, there's no way you're either recovering or getting the benefits from those sessions. Long-term issues like relative energy deficiency, which can then lead to like stress fractures, illness, just generally feeling run down, whatever that way. I find, particularly in heavy blocks of training, it's worth not weighing yourself every day or anything, but keeping a general eye on weight. I've noted a few times now with different players, so it'd be a hard block of training in June or July, and someone says, John, I'm not feeling, I have enough energy at the minute, I'm finding it hard to recover, I'm wrecked. And I just ask him a few bits around him. Are you eating before training? Are you getting your sleep? And I'd say, what's your body weight like at the minute? And I'd say, I actually haven't a clue. And about an hour later, they've gone home, they've weighed themselves, and I'm actually down 2.5 kg from where I was 2 months ago. That's actually happened 4 times with different players now, and it's something I think is worth looking at. One of the players, for example, had just gone through a block of silage and had spent long hours of the day on the tractor and just hadn't been eating enough over those few days, hence why his weight dropped and there wasn't enough overall energy there. But I've seen it in a few other examples as well, so it's worth looking at stuff like that. But overall, please try and get enough carbohydrate on board, particularly around blocks of hard training or around matches.